Okay, I'm going to start. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Martin. I'm with Princess Project San Diego, and I want to welcome all of you to Comic-Con at Home. This is our Finance for Creatives panel, formerly Financial Superhero panel, and we normally are at Comic-Con on Thursdays every afternoon. And this year we're at home, but we've got an exciting lineup of some amazing and incredible professionals that are going to be able to impart some wonderful financial insight to all of you. And I'm going to kick it off with Mr. Sean Nisil, who is going to carry us through. So Sean, you are on.
Well, thanks so much. My name's Sean. I'm a certified financial planner, and I've been doing financial planning for well over 10 years now, and really have a passion to help creatives get out there and be able to do their art. And practically speaking, you got to have your finances in order so that you can go out and create and give to your people, your tribe, your network. And right now, you are being tested. This is the part of your story. If you were reading the book of You, where everything is coming at you, the storm has come, the conflict has come, the pressure and the hardship has fallen upon you as a creative, as an artist, as a business owner, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless if you are an employee or a business owner or a solo entrepreneur, this is the time where your mettle is really being tested. And so you have a choice. We all have a choice. Are you going to fall over and let the storm just completely destroy you and take that dream and blow it by the wayside, take that art that you want to create and blow it by the wayside? Or are you going to stand up and fight for your creative process, fight for your art, fight for the people that you want to bring value to? So I want to give you a word of encouragement that what you do matters. And it's times like these that you need to, and we all need to, remember why we got in it in the first place. We can get so sidetracked sometimes with the business of it all. And obviously this is a finance panel, and we can get so overwhelmed with the finances of it all. But remember why you are doing what you're doing, whether you are an actor or an artist or, in the computer creative space or video games, whatever that is. Why did you start? And I'm pretty certain it probably wasn't just for the money. So when we are in economic hardships, go back to that beginning, go back to that why, and start that fire again. Because I'll tell you what, if you don't know why you're doing this, you'll just give it up. And so we have to stoke those fires of passion and creativity, and don't let that fall away. Don't let the enemy of economics and the enemy of hardship steal that joy away, steal that passion away from you. So how can you maintain a strong foundation moving forward? I think we can all agree, right? Everybody on this panel, we come from different backgrounds and we have a different form of art, but all of our foundations are being tested right now. And so keep taking those daily steps towards your goals, even if it's just a small step. Try to find ways where you can build that positive momentum, because momentum, it's not static, right? It's not something that's just frozen in place. You're either moving forward or you're being pulled backwards. So even if it's just that tiny step forward, and sometimes we wake up and we don't want to, right? We don't want to keep moving forward. Do it for yourself, do it for your future. Take those small steps, which will snowball and lead into bigger and bigger, snowball of momentum moving forward. There's so much right now that is outside of our control. Take this opportunity to kind of reorient your perspective and focus on those things that are within your control. One of those is, whatever your art form is, whatever your business is, how can you wow your existing clients? It's so much easier to keep an existing client than it is to go out there and find brand new ones. And so times like this, when things are just hard and difficult and you got stuff coming at you from every single angle, take some time to think about, how can I impact my current network? How can I impact my current fan base? How can I be front of mind with them? And do not external marketing, but now's a great time to do internal marketing, right? Look for that low-hanging fruit and look for those ways where you can genuinely and authentically make a positive impact to the people who are already supporting your art, who are already in your network, and who are already, those raving fans. So they can say, oh my gosh, Alonso, despite everything that's going on in the world, he just did this. Or you got to check out what Chris is doing. Go look at that Instagram handle. He's just pushing art out there for the world to see, despite everything else that's going on right now. And so how can you be genuinely helpful and encouraging and just support that passion project, support that art form that you feel called to do? When you find yourself with some extra time on your hands, a low quarantine, you can watch every episode that's available on Netflix. I heard somebody joke that I finished Netflix, all of it. I'm starting on Hulu now. That's an option. Or you can take this time to work on your business. I can't tell you how often we all use that excuse, right? Of, if I only had more time, I would be able to do this or that. Now is a perfect opportunity to fine-tune your craft, to enhance your skill set. And those things that maybe are mundane that you really don't want to do, but are fundamental to running a good business, try to hammer out some of those things now while you can have the extra time. A great question I always like to ask is, how can I do things better? How can I do things faster? How can I do things cheaper? Look at your overhead expenses right now. I mean, just go and take your monthly statement over the last couple of months. Look at those expenses. What do you not need to be spending money on? Go and call up your service providers and look at your contracts. Can you renegotiate some things? Can you cancel some expenses altogether? And then reinvest that back into something that's really going to move the needle for you, for your business, for your art, so you can keep pushing that forward, get that momentum going forward. And on a very practical level, and again, from the financial planning aspect and from a retirement account aspect, the CARES Act has more than just some stimulus checks that went out, okay? There were some fundamental changes to the laws, and if you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, you can access money without an early withdrawal penalty, still taxable. They also made some changes to the loan provisions. And so just be aware of all of your options, do the research, and if you need help, that's what people like us are here for, to help you be aware of what your options are. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean. We really appreciate it. So, and Sean, one quick thing. I didn't ask everyone to introduce themselves before they started speaking. Please introduce yourself and your title and so on.
Yeah, so I'm a lead advisor at a San Diego-based financial planning firm. We manage hundreds of millions of dollars for clients based in Southern California and all over the country. And what I'm really passionate about is helping people fund their dreams, and I'm able to do that through financial planning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. And next, we're going to turn it over to Neil Narvaez. Neil, you're on.
Hey, how you guys doing? As Karen mentioned, my name is Neil Narvaez. I run professional tax services up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we help people with their taxes and some financial coaching. And I want to thank Sean for everything he said. And it's a perfect segue. He kind of finished off on some provisions to help you out there. And I'm also passionate about getting people to, if you look at the silver lining of this pandemic, and Sean mentioned about the following your passions, recognizing the why of what you're doing. This is the perfect time to really putting in the sweat equity to market your business, right? Everybody's sitting at home and they're doing this on their phone, and because they have nowhere else to go, at least right now. So Put yourself out there, promote yourself, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be, whatever your creative endeavors are. Put yourself out there. Now's the time to kind of, in the bad times, or take advantage of the bad time that's going on right now, that people are kind of stuck at home, and they're stuck on their devices, they're stuck online. So put yourself in front of them. Get your message out there, what you're trying to convey out there, what you're trying to sell out there. So this is a perfect time to do that. And as Sean kind of alluded to, the CARES Act. So I'm here to talk about more, not necessarily, we're not going to really get into the nitty gritty of taxes per se, because of the unique situation we're all experiencing right now. But if you own your own business, whether you own an official entity, be it an S Corp or LLC, or if you just have a side hustle and you're doing stuff on the side, you're a sole proprietor, you're selling art, you're getting money, you're a cosplayer, and you're getting some money from sponsorships, and you're reporting that. If you've fallen on hard times, financially at least, there are a couple of programs out there with the CARES Act, and you might have heard of them, and I'm just going to touch upon them lightly here. One is called the PPP program. That's the payment protection of that program. It's or payroll protection program. It's to help people who have payroll, to help with their payroll expenses. If your business had to shut down, or if you own an art gallery, and you're selling art and your art gallery had to shut down, you can't sell art for the past 2 or 3 months. This is a program where you can, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're kind of doing a side hustle, what it is basically, it's a loan. Okay, it's a loan to help you make ends meet. And the key part of this loan is it's potentially forgivable, meaning it's a loan you might not have to pay back. Now, as we record this, or as we're kind of conveying this, the laws are literally constantly changing every day. As the law is today, if you use 60% of the money you get from a PPP loan on payroll or paying yourself, if you're a sole proprietor, it's potentially forgivable. That you don't have to pay it back. It's, for lack of a better word, it's free money from the government. The other aspect of it, the 40-ish%, as long as it's used for qualified expenses, a mortgage on a business, your rent, utilities, as long as you use it for those type of expenses, again, if you qualify for a PPP loan, that's also potentially forgivable. Again, meaning it's free money to help you make ends meet in your business. There's also something called the Economic Impact Disaster Loan, EIDL. That's another loan. And both of these loans are administered by the Small Business Administration. So these are government loans. Now that one is not necessarily forgivable, but you can qualify for a little bit more on the EIDL loan. And again, it's to help you make ends meet. Now, what can you use this money for if you qualify for it? The list of expenses you can use are much broader than the PPP loan. But again, the pros with the PPP loan is that it's potentially a free grant to help you just make ends meet to survive, and it's free money if you do it correctly. The EIDL loan is more of a loan where you do have to pay it back, and the terms are favorable, but you have a wider range of things you could use that money for. Again, both of these are administered or approved by the Small Business Administration. I would recommend talking to a trusted advisor to kind of help you navigate these application processes. Typically, most people go through banks. There's been anecdotal stories that if you have a credit union, you're more apt to get approved for this loan because the bigger banks, the Bank of America's, the Wells Fargo's, are dealing with much more clientele, many more clients. So again, anecdotally, if you have a relationship with a credit union, you might want to try and apply there. But again, those are the two main issues to the main benefits of the CARES Act that came about that Sean mentioned that can really help small businesses at this time. Just gotta start checking my time here. Aside from that, as I said, I'd reiterate and follow up. You're going to get a bunch of great advice from the people on this panel. But this is a challenging time for us all. Keep your North Star know why you're doing what you're doing. And if you can, see the silver lining in everything that's going on, be it through taking advantage of eyes on social media and really, promoting yourself. And again, if you're falling on hard times financially, and you might want to apply for these two different type of loans that are out there, the PPP loan and the EIDL loan, talk to an advisor. Definitely help navigate and get your application right, so it has a higher chance of approval. And there are a lot more details associated with these two types of loans. So we're just touching the surface here, but hopefully we made you aware that it is available for sole proprietors. Again, people with kind of side hustles, as long as you're profitable, you don't have to have a business. So if you're making money, or if you make money and you stop making money because of the pandemic, COVID, then these might be available to you. So stay strong, and that's it for now. Thanks, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much, Neil. That was wonderful. All right, next we have Eric Atilano, who will be speaking. Eric, you are up.
Hi there, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. I am a mortgage broker, so this message is for everyone who's able to attend this panel. And I'm going to start one of three categories. The very first one is, if you're currently a creative in the industry and you have a steady income, you've been very fortunate to survive this, and you're a homeowner, what do you do right now? Because you have the option to take forbearance, because they're not going to ask if you have hardship or not. You have the option to refinance and get a lower rate. What do you do? My first and most important message is, if you're getting an income, please do not go into forbearance. It's not going to be a beneficial aspect to your profile. Even though there's no negative credit score, it's not a benefit to tell lenders you're unable to pay this debt. Now, again, this is for those earning an income. This is important that we separate that from the ones that are not right now. The ones that are earning an income should not get a forbearance. They should look at their interest rates, and they should calculate this carefully. Interest rates are below 3%. Now, that doesn't always work well for everybody, because you have to look at the fees and the details. Shop around. Most retail banks are going to take anywhere from 60 to 90 days to close the transaction for you, which means that the lock period is much longer. So in the banking world, the longer you lock a rate, the more expensive that rate becomes, because you're immune to any market fluctuations. The shorter the lock, the cheaper that rate is, and the lower your fees are going to be. So one final rule, and I'll say this again at the end, but to this category, if you're shopping interest rates right now, just know this one law. Banks, lenders, financial institutions that price or try to quote fees are not legally obligated to be accurate, because they need to look at your credit report. They need to look at your income. They need to look at the property type. They need to look at all that stuff. That's what creates your fees. So if you see anybody advertising it, it's just a generalized area that most people might fit in. It doesn't pertain to you. So to get a good, unique look at it, find a broker like myself, someone who has access to all the nation's wholesale lenders in the nation, and let them find a bank that's going to fit your program and product. Or if you're very dedicated to your bank, have a very conscious conversation with them. Remember, that rep at the bank may not be the most experienced guy, so he's going to have to refer you to someone like a processor, someone who's going to be doing the transaction. But these are questions you need to ask now. Banks are making hand over fist tons of profit on the lock of the rate, and they're increasing the cost of that lock because they know they can. Okay, so just know that. Number two, if you're a homeowner and you're a creative in the industry and you've taken a hit on income, I agree, forbearance may be a qualified item for you, but be very, very careful what you forbear on, okay? Let's say that you have enough in savings and you've got a little bit of a side project, so you only chose to forbear your auto loan or some credit cards, but you want to refinance. Those two are going to really kill the refinance option. You got to think like an underwriter, okay? Well, all you need to know, and when it comes to owning a home and maintaining the ownership of the home, is your affordability window, okay? A lot of the homeowners in America right now are being squeezed very, very tightly because of this pandemic and because of the unemployment and because of all the other ingredients that are very, very face forward on us right now. So don't feel alone, but just know how to strategically place yourself in the right position. If you do take forbearance, the thing you need to know is It's not going to be a negative on your credit score, but it will add to the size of your loan. So if you only owe like $300,000 on your mortgage and your monthly payment's $2,500 a month and you forbear it, it's going to add $2,500 every month to that $300,000 balance. So every 2 months, it's $5,000. Every 4 months, it's $10,000. Think about that. Think about how important it is to put that money aside. Now, let's say you get your job back 6 months from now and you're like, oh, I was on forbearance for 6 months. Well, guess what? When you sell the home, you've just given up a ton of the equity because of those payments that it had to absorb, right? So you want to keep very conscious of how you want to play that game. Maybe you only take 2 months forbearance. Maybe you take 3. Maybe it's uncertain, but you understand what you're up against now that you know that. So let's say you're shopping for a home and you're doing so because you're gainfully employed and you're doing this and you're very optimistic and you want to make the right decision. Well, purchase transactions have to close within a 30-day or less window. Sometimes you'll get some over 30 because the seller needs time to find another house or move. Well, rates are always going to be on your side. Get more than one quote. You can go with a lender and start the game there. Get a credit score, let them do all that, and then get what's called a lender estimate. Get the best pricing that you're able to afford from that lender and then shop with that one quote. No other bank needs to run your credit score. Just say, hey, this bank's giving me this. What can you give me? It's that easy. Banks need to compete for you. And that's why I became a broker, because instead of working for one bank and what it was only on their shelves, I get all the banks in the nation now and they fight for you. And I'm going to help you make sure you get that better choice. Last but not least, how do you prepare to buy for a home right now during this pandemic when you don't know where your money's going to be coming from sooner or later and you don't understand what the pricing values are going to be, and is it even a good time to buy? Well, the number one thing I'm going to tell you is make sure you make all your payments. Don't forbear on an auto loan. Don't forbear on a credit card if you can afford it. Okay, get the unemployment, get those things. That's not going to hinder you later. What's going to hinder you later is the credit. Most people don't think that it's that powerful. It really is the main ingredient in the affordability. You may make great money one day. You may have a wonderful down payment one day. But if you have a terrible history of making payments back to the money you borrowed, banks are going to have to increase the cost of doing business with you. So in this case, if you're not earning any income right now, you're doing side jobs to get by, you're collecting the unemployment, and you're trying your hardest to stay afloat, make it a huge focus to just pay your bills and make sure those are on time. You might have to go back to really simple life like ramen and ice cream, but you just make sure you understand that if you skip anything, the actual explanation of, well, we were all unemployed, we were in forbearance, and I was collecting unemployment, it's not going to fly 2 years from now. Anybody who understands what 2007 to 2009 and 10 was, every civilian that or American citizen that took advantage of those loan programs from the government paid for it later. They didn't get the additional helping hand when everything started to turn around. And I don't want that to happen to any of you. So any questions, you can find me on Facebook, Eric Atilano. You can Google me. I'll show up all over. There's not a lot of Eric Atilanos. So that's about it.
Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate, I think everyone really appreciates all the insight that you, Sean, and Neil were able to provide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chris Neuhahn. Chris, if you could please introduce yourself, kind of say, you know, what you do in the industry and kind of share some of the successes and, well, challenges also that you and other industry professionals may be experiencing right now.
Okay. I'm Chris Neuhahn. I'm an Emmy-winning animation producer, director, and a writer. And that involves just helping make shows run, and then directing is somewhat obvious. And our industry, almost everyone I know has been able to work from home. And so in a sense, they have a bit of a skewed view of what the downturn is like, because a lot of our jobs, like for me, I've been working from home since early March now, and we can continue as we go. One of the things that I keep thinking about in this, especially as it relates to this panel, is how arbitrary how quick and arbitrary you can suddenly be out of work. And regardless of where, whatever you have any position on the lockdowns or anything like that, it's clear that someone outside of your ability to influence them can cause you to not be able to work, even if you're willing. And clearly being in that situation and having debt is disastrous, because like Eric is saying, you start missing those payments, and that your ability to recover gets harder and harder, especially if you're spending on credit cards to weather the thing. If you've already been in credit card debt and you have to hit those credit cards to make some payments, you may end up running out of room. I had a question really quick for Neil on the PPP loans. One of the things that I've read about it, I haven't done a ton of research, but the rules governing the forgiveness on those loans are very vague, and a lot of the banks don't even understand what they are. So one thing I'd caution on anyone taking those loans, don't assume it's going to be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as I mentioned, everything is really in flux right now. They literally signed updates to that, changes to the rules regarding what's forgivable, I think 3-4 days ago, or maybe a week ago. It used to be you had to spend X percentage, I think it was 70% of payroll, or if you're a sole proprietor paying yourself. They updated it, they made it flexible to now it's 60% that you have to pay yourself to be forgivable. And they've expanded the amount of time you have to use those funds for appropriate expenses. Again, everything's in flux. As you alluded to, definitely talk to a professional, a trusted advisor, if you're looking to take advantage.
My one thing that I would add to that is only hit those resources if it's like absolutely critical that you do. Otherwise, it could just be another chunk of debt that you might think you can get out of, but you can't.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, there's good and bad, right? Like you mentioned, be careful. There is a good aspect of it, right? It is potentially free money. If you're really hurting and you use it the right way, it's potentially free money from the government to help you weather the storm. Potentially is the key word. Talk to an advisor, as you said. Be careful. Yeah. Not everything is, there's no such thing as truly free things in life. Yeah, you have strings attached usually.
Like inflation.
There you go. Which might be negative.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm also going to have Alonso Nunez jump in. Alonso, could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Karen. This has been a great panel so far. I'm Alonso Nunez, comic creator and executive director of Little Fish Comic Book Studio. We're a 501c3 nonprofit comic studio and advocacy group here in San Diego. And I guess I wanted to take my time to kind of just walk everyone out there watching this through Little Fish's story during this. I feel like we're a case study for what the first three speakers kind of all talked about today. Thank you guys for all that info and for the revisiting of the trauma of the last 3 months. So as the coronavirus started to take hold in early March, we were just coming off of a really fun comic convention, Comic Fest, and Little Fish had to kind of adapt on the fly seemingly every day to shifts in policy and recommendations. I remember when all of a sudden we had to, lose our immunocompromised students, right, who were no longer comfortable coming in, and the city had recommended that they stay home, right? So we set up, I think we were doing Google Hangouts for them over our TVs, and then there were social distancing requirements, so we reconfigured our classroom, right? And then finally we went into shelter in place and switched all our classes to being digital, right? Which posed challenges for a art studio. It was unclear if some of the classes would work, as a lot of kind of hands-on art instruction is needed, but I was really really kind of struck by how much of a community Little Fish has built, and how excited students were to continue to have a place to kind of grow and express their work and kind of come together. And now, literally yesterday, we have shifted again as summer camp season started. Right, as a lot of companies and businesses do, we were kind of checking the city and state recommendations every day in regards to day camps, in regards to similar businesses, and so we took the necessary precautions to reopen with social distancing. We cut our attendance cap in half, and concurrently opened up new virtual camps for students. And usually the phrase cognitive dissonance, which is used in psychology, is a bad thing, right? It means kind of holding two conflicting ideas in your mind simultaneously. But it's really my recommendation during this point as a creative to kind of, as much as possible, hold two conflicting thoughts in your mind, right? One being things are completely different and will never go back to how they were, right? And adapting for the future, exploring new possibilities, while at the same time thinking, okay, someday, maybe soon, maybe in a little while, we're going to go back to how things were. How do we transition back into that, right? So as much as possible, be flexible, and though it seems crazy, kind of move in both those kind of two directions simultaneously, at least imaginatively, so you can kind of prepare for the best while, prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, thank you, Alonso. And we have a couple more minutes to sort of have a little roundtable discussion, but I just wanted to let our audience out there know that some additional contact information and resources are going to be included at the end of this presentation, with some very helpful links you'll be able to click on. And I just want to encourage everyone out there, part of the reason why we're doing this panel is because there are so many challenges that have hit the creative industry, and it's such an important thing. Art is so incredibly important, especially now more than ever. And so I just want to encourage everyone out there, if you are experiencing great challenges financially and even mental health wise, please seek assistance, seek help out, because everyone that's here on this panel is here doing it for their love of art and the support of the community. And there are so many other trusted advisors, again, and resources that you can tap into to please take advantage of it now, because once this pandemic is over and everyone is able to move forward, there is so much rich art and culture that is going to come back with such a full force. So I just want to encourage everyone, really, if you need help, don't be afraid to seek it out. It's so important. So, but does anyone have anything that they would like to add, before we conclude? Or I'm going to open it up, and yes, Eric.
I don't know how off subject this is, but I watched V for Vendetta last night, and it's like right now. It's ridiculous.
Super
It's
tough.
even got a virus.
Yeah.
It's got the government. It's got lockdowns. It's got quarantines. What an amazing story.
Yeah.
I'd seen it when it came out, but that was a long time ago. I was a lot younger and not as smart. Now I can see, I just recommend it. If anybody has the time on their hands to watch it, I think it's really a great movie for
Well, that
what we're going
tagline, art imitates life, right?
through. It does.
So true. So true.
Right. We are living in the upside down time. The loan officer giving comic movie recommendations, and now the comic guy is going to give a business recommendation. Just as a one note, if anyone is applying for the PPP as Little Fish did, and we were approved, one thing that my accountant suggested, because as Neil and Chris talked about, this is all up in the air right now. And there's going to be, at the very least, accountability, for making sure that you did spend that 60% on payroll is if you are going through a separate bank. We went through a separate credit union because they were one of the first ones to really be advertising and have access to the PPP funding. Is my accountant recommended setting up just a single checking account with either that credit union or your own bank, so that you can put that PP money in that account and pull directly from there, so you can account for that money without it getting tangled in your normal kind of financial accounts.
Yeah, Alonso, that's yeah. Again, it's all about keeping track of things. That's a great idea. To open up a separate account to get your track so you can prove. So big picture, realistically, where this would come into play is if the SBA, again, which is the company that's managing this, pulls your number and says, prove to us that you spent 60% on payroll, and the other percentage was used on the acceptable expenditures. You'd have to prove that, and that's a great idea. That's a great tip, to keep a separate account for if you get approved for these funds. Put them in the account, and you can show, hey, look, I use this for payroll, I use this for rent or utilities. It's a great way to prove it. Yeah, because again, the PPP loan at least is potentially free money the government's giving small businesses to help them weather the storm.
And on the theme of just knowing your options, but also know what strings are attached. There's a lot of things that opened up through these acts and new laws, and 2020 has more doors that you can walk through, but know what's on the other side of those doors. I mentioned briefly on the retirement account side, yes, you can access money if you're younger without an early withdrawal penalty, but guess what? It's still taxable, right? It's not free money. You can't just tap in and get liquidity without knowing the other side of the equation. So be sure to do your homework. Don't feel like you're handcuffed, but know what you're getting into before you make these choices, because they are big choices.
Yeah, and to dovetail on that, and Karen mentioned we're going to have contact information.
Yes.
But definitely talk to whoever your trusted financial or trusted advisors regarding these things. A lot of people actually were approved for these two different types of loans, saw the potential strings that Sean mentioned, and said, you know what, forget it. And they returned them actually because they didn't want to deal with the potential negative aspects of these loans. So, and I think Chris mentioned this as well. Be aware, eyes wide open, and talk to the professionals that you trust to make sure it's the right decision for you, be it a PPP loan, the IDL loan, or tapping in from your IRA 401k. One might be a better decision for you than the other.
Oh. Hey, I want to.
One thing I want to say, I get a chance to say this every year at the panel, less organically this time, but I think this is very important for artists. Don't start your career out in debt. If student debt is voluntary, and any school that's making you take English classes in order to be an artist, no one in the industry cares whether you get an English degree or pass some particular college. Most of the stuff that you need for your career, you can learn from YouTube. There are specialized schools like Schoolism and SVS Learn and a bunch of stuff like that have true industry professionals, not just teachers who worked in the industry before, or even stuff like Alonso is doing, where it's a very specific to a specific goal rather than this sort of generalized, hey, we're going to give you a degree. None of that stuff really applies when you go to get jobs in the industry. And going and spending $30,000 a year, whatever a college costs these days, to get a degree is almost certainly a waste of money, unless you are just someone who absolutely needs someone to force some discipline on you.
Gosh, well, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for sharing your insights on what's going on right now. And again, to our audience, we wish everyone health, safety, and wellness. And hopefully, once everything is over, we hope to see you in person at Comic-Con next year or the year after. But regardless, yeah, pursue your dreams and seek out that trusted advisor or help when you need it. And again, thank you everyone for your time.